All right. Well, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nina Corder. For any of you who is new to Women After the Door platform or our Zoom space, so I'm really excited to have you here with us today. For any of you who is new to Women After Lido, I highly recommend you check it out our website. I know we have two of my team members here today with me. I do have Christina Al-Sayed that's going to be helping with the chat room, and I'm pretty sure she's going to drop in our website. So if you want to check it out, if you're new to the organization.
What?
Our mission is to educate, engage, empower women and youth to keep moving forward. I apologize. Christina, do you mind muted everyone, please? Thank you. So what we do here at Women of Toledo is we provide programs and services that advocate for diversity and inclusion with a focus on women economic empowerment. So when we talk about women economic empowerment, we provide a lot of mentoring and peer networking support and conversation educational initiative and a women's circle such as this to have a conversation that is critical issue to a lot of issues that about women's and that is in marketplace, workplace, and also in a community. So I'm really excited to be here today. If you did not get a pre-session, I highly you take a look at your email to make sure that you go over the rules of engagement. Automatically right now you are muted so that you can listen in, listen and learn. And then of course that this is a Women's Circle dialogue. So we will open up everyone, welcome everyone to unmute so that you can engage the conversation with us. And this is a timeline agenda today. We are right on time. We did 6:10 to checking in, and right now about 6:12, I did my introduction. And then I want to check the temperature of the room today. So I'm going to put a poll up if you can take a minute and then click on your screen right now. How are you feeling using the spotlight, stoplight, traffic light color? How are you feeling today? I want to see if everyone can participate today. How are we feeling? Oh, I'm excited. There's no one in red. This is good. This is good. Good. Okay. So we have about 47% in yellow, about 58% in green. Mostly good. Well, good. Well, thank you for all of you that participate. Oh, we do have someone in red. Whoever that put on red, please hop over to the group chat and share why are you red. Perhaps some of us can check in with you to make sure if we can support you in any way we can. We'd be happy to help you out throughout this session. Okay, and if you're in red and you have a specific question that we can help you on regards of the conversation today, perhaps we can help you do. Thank you again for sharing how you feel today. About 6:15, 6:40, we're gonna have 15 to 20 minute a speaker, and I am so excited today to have our state representative, District 44, Paula Hudson. She's gonna engage in a conversation about how do we respond on the current issue and understand the next step, how we can engage with our elected official. So hope that we be able to listen and learn and relearn what we need to do as a civic engagement community. And about 6:45, we welcome you to unmute yourself so that you can have Q&A. It will be moderated by one of our Women of Toledo board members, Sabrina Weaver, and I welcome her to introduce herself, pyro that, and then we will have a follow-up with open dialogue. About 7:20, we hope to wrap it up. We want to try to stay, respect your time, start on time, and be able to conclude the program today on time. So without further ado, I am really excited to introduce our speaker today, our State Rep, Ohio House of Representatives, District 44, Paula Hicks. Her bio is quite long, so I'm gonna have Christina drop it, the link on our group chat, so you are welcome to learn a little bit more about her if you are not familiar with Paula Hicks Hudson. But I just want to share a quick story. I know Paula for quite some time, and until today, she is a remarkable woman leader that I really look up as a mentor, as partners in advocacy, and many more. And I still remember a conversation I had with Paula, I believe in 3-4 years ago, when Women of Toledo received a recognition by United Nations Women. We were certified as one out of 12 in the nation as a global champion for change project. So I shared the announcement, the story with Paula, and then Paula kind of looked at me and said, how come I did not hear about this? Where is the press release about this? How come it's not in the paper? So many of you know that, and being a part of Women of Toledo, I like to do the work. You know, I'm always behind the scene, and that really fueled me to just get my hand dirty and do the work. But many of you have recently discovered that lately I've been a little bit front, and instead of finding a moderator or host our program, you know, I have a courage now to be up here and continue improving to be a better leader and better speaker. Because Paula, the one who reminded me that don't do it for you, do it for another Asian girls that out in our community that need a role model, a mentor to look up to, and say that I can be like her. You know, so that is something that until today is still resonate in me. And I keep on reminding to a lot of leaders and mentors that it's behind the scene. Step it up, show up, because do it for someone else that might look up to you. So that is a story that I would like to share. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and stop share screen. And there you go, Paula. I'm gonna unmute you.
There you go. Yes, yay. And thank you so much. I never realized that those words had such an impact because someone shared those with me. So we always have to show and give more. So. Are we ready?
We are.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I'm really honored to be on this call or Zoom meeting, just to talk about some things, and just to give you a full picture of how the legislature works. And I don't want to have to go back to elementary, but I'm really surprised at how many folks don't understand that there's two houses in the state as well as in the federal government. You have the House of Representatives, which I'm a member of, and then you have the Senate. And so we pass laws that then have to go to the Senate. Senate also passes legislation rather that comes back to the House. And so we have to, if we're lucky, we will have legislation that's exactly the same. But if not, then you'll have legislation that might have a slight difference that we'll have to then have a conference committee if we don't concur with whatever the Senate did. It's real important to know that, and for me, it's still a big learning curve to understand that it takes a minute or takes a while for legislation to be an idea to then get to the governor's desk to be signed. And one of the things that I learned being in the House is that so much of the legislation that we're passing this term is really legislation or ideas that were started in previous general assemblies, and it takes time for things to get through this process. And with and I'm gonna go a little bit political, but I think you have to recognize that with the makeup of both the Senate, the House, and most of the state offices, that there oftentimes is only one voice that is being heard. So the caucus that I'm in, we're in the minority, and so we are the counter voice. We're the ones that are raising issues and trying to make whatever legislation that's being proposed better, because we have this mindset that we really do work for the citizens that sent us to Columbus, and that we really want to represent, the members there. Now, what I want to talk about just real briefly are a couple of bills, two that I've introduced, and then the third one, which is really kind of the talk of the times, which is the House Resolution 31, which is declaring racism as a public health crisis. The Senate also has a companion bill that they've already had hearings on, where a number of people have gone and talked about how racism affects, the way people of color are treated. It affects their health. It affects, all of the things that can help someone be healthy. And so the Senate has had hearings. We have not in the House. And unfortunately, we are probably on summer recess. The reason why I say probably is because the Speaker could call us back for something if there was an emergency or something special. But we don't think that the House is going to do anything with our particular resolution until maybe in the fall or after the election. Not really sure, but we're really pushing to have that conversation about this issue, and even spoke with the governor earlier today when we were on a conference call about this very issue. Now, what does this mean if we declare racism as a public health crisis? What it can do is provide guidance and leadership and a focal point. I think more importantly, that focal point by which legislation, which the work and the acts of the executive branch, the different departments can really look and say, are these things that we're doing, are they helping or hurting? And are they being done through this lens of racism? And so we're hopeful that we in the House are hopeful that we can put pressure to have this committee hearing heard sooner rather than later. But again, we're not holding out a lot of hope right now because we're on summer break. There are two other bills that I was talking about. One is House Bill 611, which is a bill that would expand Medicaid cost reimbursement for doula services. Right now, Ohio has a very limited doula funded through Medicaid program. And what we would like to do is expand it so that a mom who would choose to who would qualify for Medicaid, be able to get a doula to help them, couple months before and then a couple months after the delivery of her child. And that is something that we see, especially here in Lucas County, the maternal health outcomes and even the infant mortality outcomes in Lucas County are terrible. And the reason I was one of the co-sponsors of this is because if we can have someone that can help that mom advocate through the process, then I'm hoping that mom will be stronger, healthier, and more confident in being a mom and being able to get through and getting those resources and being able to be strong enough to have a healthy baby. And the second one is called the Crown. And this is a piece of legislation that deals with, very similar to the head covering, where especially for women of color, African American women and boys and children in the education setting, being able to wear their hair naturally. I don't know if you remember the story a couple years back of the young student at Central Catholic who had to leave the school because he had dreadlocks in honor of his Caribbean heritage. And so the school said, it violated school policies. And so therefore he had to leave the school. His sister, who did not wear dreads, also had to leave the school. And so the Crown Act will make that illegal to discriminate against in the education setting. It's only in education, but it's a place to start so that our children, you know, at the time that they're growing up, they're not being stigmatized and further traumatized because they wear their hair a certain way. And as I was doing research on it, I looked at a number of posts that came out of Central Catholic where the students were really upset with the administration making that call and not seeing it as a problem. So it was more disruptive for this child to be kicked out of school than for him to be in school. And he's a football player, so you know that was really kind of crazy. So those are two bills that I've been working on. And but that's only half the story. How do we help women be more engaged, more powerful in terms of the political front? I can talk about it in two simple ways. Not only vote for your candidate, I mean, it's three ways. Educate yourself about the candidates and the issues. Vote based upon that information that you see that the candidate is as close aligned to what you believe in. And nobody's going to ever be 100%, but as close as they can be. And then thirdly, follow up. You know, today I worked on a letter with my aide to send to people who are sending letters about there's a stand your ground bill that's working its way through the Criminal Justice Committee in the House. And I want to be able to respond. I'm not on that committee, but I want to be able to respond and tell folks, this is the process. This is the committee you need to watch. I'm going to watch it. I'll keep you informed of it, but we have to be able to make sure that your legislators are hearing you, responding to you, and not only responding to you in an email, but also in their vote. Because if I'm voting against what you believe in, then I shouldn't be your representative. And I think that that's the most important thing, is that I'm there working for you. I'm there doing what I think, partly what I think is right, but also trying to make sure I hear the voice of my constituents, the people who live in District 44, making sure that Columbus knows, I say this all the time, making sure that Columbus knows that Toledo is in the state of Ohio, and we deserve as much attention as the three C's get, and the D. But a lot of times you never hear Toledo's name. And so I constantly am saying Toledo, Toledo, Toledo. You know, the 419, my face mask is Toledo, and I have other things that says 419, just to make sure people know where I'm from and who I represent. I don't know if you want me to talk any more about anything, or if I've not touched on the topics that you want, just let me know, because I can ramble all night long.
Well, thank you, Paula. What I'll do is, let me see. So how do we respond on the current issue? So you pretty much did address it on that three bill. I do have a quick question. Someone just said, what is the bill number for the racism vote?
It's HCR 31.
Okay, we'll post that on our group chat. Okay.
Sure.
And you also did address how to understand the next step, how to engage with your elected officials. So pretty much, I would like to bring the group together. So if any of you want to ask Paula any question related to the current issue or anything that we want, this is the time for you to engage in the conversation. If not, I'll pivot it to Sabrina to ask some of the pre-session questions that we received from the RSVP. You are welcome to unmute yourself.
Well, while people are doing that, one thing I didn't really talk about is the issue about you know, the whole issue about police and what we're looking at, because you hear a lot of stuff about defunding police, and that's, I think, is not what I'm talking about or what other people are talking about. But we really need to think about how much time police are engaged in crime fighting and how much time they're spent on social kinds of issues, mental health challenges, domestic violence challenges, all those things. So you need someone is working to have those types of skills. So that's looking at policing, and I'm going to say 22nd century policing, where we're having folks that not only are able to enforce the law, but also have skills to de-escalate and try to get people connected to the help that they need. I saw a question about what committee is the Stand Your Ground bill, and that is in criminal justice. It's in the House, in the Criminal Justice Committee, and they've had a couple of meetings already, but as I said, everything is on summer recess right now.
We also have another question. What is the number of the Crown bill?
I think it's 683. I'm gonna have to check to be sure because I was trying to find it before I got on.
Okay.
But I think it's 683.
All right. Anyone have any question that you'd like to ask Paula about the current issue or anything that mattered to you?
Well, I guess I'm always, my name is Erica Burry. I'm always curious about what is the best way to get a hold of your representative about something that you care about?
You can, I say, send an email. And for example, if it's a representative, it would be rep, R-E-P, whatever their district number is, at ohiohouse.gov. Like for example, I'm District 44, so my email is rep44 at ohiohouse.gov. And Ohio House is all one word. That's one way. Then of course you can call, you can also write letters. But you know, my aide and I work very hard to try to respond to as many letters as, you know, emails or whatever kind of communication that we receive.
If I could ask a question, is that okay?
Yeah.
Hi, Paula.
Hey, Paula.
Hi, Paula Burney. I'm the owner of Arista Home Care Solutions. We provide in-home care services to the elderly and the disabled. Paula, so we share a name. That's fun. But Lucas Metropolitan Housing Authority, LMHA, has been like offline for like 3 months ever since this started. And I don't understand why they're not responding to requests and stuff. So if we have issues with particular government agencies, how do we address that?
Okay. Well, for example, LMHA has a board, and they might be offline a little bit because their former director left and they have a new director. So that could be part of it. But if you are not getting responses, then the board of directors is where I would go. I'm not sure if Hugh Grief is still on the board. I'm not remember who the members are.
Yeah, it's been very frustrating. It's been very frustrating with a lot of the offices in Toledo, Lucas County or whatever, when you call and every time you call somebody, you get this, well, because of COVID, we can't do this or we can't do that. And that, I think that's like a lot of just, I'm sorry, bullshit. Because of COVID, but you still have to respond to your client's needs. And I don't think that's a good response. So I'm very frustrated with LMHA in Toledo right now. It's so frustrated. And I don't even know who to talk to. So you as my representative, I'm reaching out to you. Who do I talk to help me? So we can take this private. We can take this private afterwards, but I'm just telling you that it's,
okay. Yeah. Here's what to call. Okay, my office number in Columbus, and my aide's name is Kane. My phone number there is 614-466-1401. They'll put it up. They'll put it up.
I know they'll put it up because I'm not writing it down now. But
right.
Yeah.
And then see Kane, and then we can figure it out. But we can, or I can give you my office number here, my law office. I should be there tomorrow. And that's 419-329-4. Okay, you're not writing it down.
Christina's doing it, right?
Yes, we are.
That's our Christina.
And then we are
Yeah.
putting it on the group chat, and we'll
Yeah.
share it with the email.
Okay, 419-329-4383. I think.
I just feel that a lot of government agencies are using COVID like sort of like, oh, I'm sorry, we're really busy right now because of COVID and we can't answer your phone call. That is the impression that I'm getting from just phone calls I make. And I'm in healthcare, and so anyway. But
and I'm not going to make excuses because I think you have to.
No, of course not.
But I think you have to be able to juggle it. But I will say that, I'm a lawyer, and it has been extremely frustrating to try to navigate all my cases that should have been completed in May at the very latest. I still have stuff going, I still don't have trial dates or whatever for things, or they've been pushed to July. And that's kind of traumatic for the individuals that I'm representing. But that being said, we need to figure out a way to be able to manage the pandemic and be able to be responsive. And so, I know that, for example, I'm having a brain freeze. Anita Lopez's office, she has people working from remote. They work remotely, and you get caught. So I've not missed a beat with her as a public, elected official, whereas the court system, because maybe it's more public facing, has been a little bit more challenging.
Can I add? This is Diana. Thanks, Paula and Paula. Hi, Paula's. Okay, Paula, Bernie, you should contact the Fair Housing Center at 419-243-6163. The Fair Housing Center has just recently made they've been working with the housing court on a rental I don't know what the issue is, but to help with rental assistance and people having issues with rental problems. However, I used to work there. I was general counsel there at one point, but we did a lot of work on the backlog of issues with LMHA. So partly what we are experiencing are very archaic entities of which have not done anything electronically, right? Our court system, LMHA having backlogs from years and years and years. So I would highly suggest contacting the Fair Housing Center and talking through your issues with them.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, and I did drop Ken's complete contact information and also the Fair Housing in there.
Great.
Yes, thank you.
And I'll make sure I'll email with your post session today. All right. Any other question?
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I wanted to, I don't know, maybe like stir something up, or maybe just stir the conversation. Just looking at these two bills that Representative Paula was mentioning, the Stand Your Ground and racism as a public health issue. Does anybody else other than me see the polar opposite of these two bills? And does nobody else see like the complete obvious timing of these two bills? And again, I'm not sure when they were introduced into the House. And again, like I said, my daughter was asked questions about the racism and public health issues during the Senate hearings. And from what I heard, they had about 10 hours worth of sessions discussing the policies as far as racism being a public health issue. But like when I saw that came up as Stand Your Ground, obviously like the first thing, I'm not sure if anybody else here felt, Trayvon Martin's name just come flashing straight to your mind. And it made me embarrassed that even Ohio even has this going on right now, knowing all the issues that are going on and, all the loss that we have, we've been suffering and having to deal with this reality. And I just kind of wanted to put it out there. If I was the only one that felt that way, that was just a big slap in the face with this whole trying to make racism a policy health crisis.
You have added, you have just put the I don't know how to say a better example of what many of us feel in the House, that we were called back to the House mid-May, when some of the hotels were not even available for people to stay in. So for the first 2 weeks, I would drive from Toledo to Columbus. Then my sister lived in Cincinnati area, which was closer than coming back home, to stay with her and then go back to Columbus to pass bills that were not necessarily connected to the COVID pandemic, not anything other than just for the majority party to show that they didn't believe that the pandemic was real. There have been a number of bills that have been put out there that we're scratching our head saying, how is this moving Ohio forward? How is this helping people make it? This Stand Your Ground bill was introduced. It's been introduced in every General Assembly, and we had hoped that it was not going to be introduced at all. And our caucus leader had tried to work out a deal with the majority caucus to say, don't bring that bill at all during this session. And some of those members were able to do that anyway. So last Thursday, we were in session till after 2 o'clock because our caucus was trying to put an amendment onto a fair bill, county fair bill that would have prohibited the display, selling, or anything of the Confederate flag. Ohio is a union state, and yes, and they were a union state. More men and women that fought in the Civil War from Ohio per capita who died. We had the highest number, but yet and still, our colleagues would not refuse to recognize all of the problems with that Confederate flag. And so we fought the valiant fight and was not able to get any member of the majority caucus to vote. One of them did vote with us for the amendment, but that was it. So we're living in a time where people I think we're at a time of great change. And with great change, there's a lot of fear. And so I don't want to say be patient, but we have to really educate folks and really have tough conversations. So people may not be comfortable, but we have to be able to have those conversations, and not have those conversations us with each other, but have those conversations with others who don't necessarily agree, look like us, think like us. Just to be able to share with them our experiences, with the hope that what we see happening in the streets, I think it's the genie is out of the box, and no one's gonna be able to put it back in. And so it's my frustration many times that I'm in Columbus listening to these guys, mostly it's men, talking this crazy talk. And it's like, we need fixed healthcare. We need to, make education constitutionally funded. We've got to stop traumatizing our babies with these crazy high-stake tests. We've got to get housing. And one of the things that Diana talked about was the antiquated systems. For 20 years or so, to at least the last 15 years, the state of Ohio has not returned funds back to local governments so that they can upgrade their infrastructure. So you're expecting an unemployment compensation system that has not received any funding and has been cut for the last 15 years to be able to handle the massive number of people who couldn't get their unemployment. It's just crazy.
I honestly thought when I saw the county fair bill, when I saw that come up, I was like, that's a slam dunk, easy peasy. Like that. We're a union state, I'm like a little bit of a history buff, so I know about all the losses, and I know about how much Ohioans gave up during the Civil War. And I was like, easy, yes, move forward. And when it did it, I was like, what is happening to us, as a state, as a society in general, when we can't admit when something's wrong is wrong.
Yes.
And we don't realize the lasting effect that has, not necessarily for us right now, because we are discussing it. Everybody here is discussing it. We are understanding the effect, but we don't understand what tomorrow it will be someone else and there won't be no discussion. And it will play in their future. It will continue to do things that you'll see the consequences later. And then our children's children will have to bear with our decision making that we made today. And sometimes it's hard for people to see past that. But we deal with these consequences every single day. And this is why we're in the situation that we're in now, is that we continue to allow lawmakers, or the majority of these lawmakers, again, like you said, men, from affluent backgrounds, to make decisions for the majority of people that they don't know what the long-term effect is.
Right.
So.
Can I add to this? I seem to be adding to things, but it was only 4 years ago that Ohio tried to introduce the Miss Murphy Law, which in 1968, when the Fair Housing Act passed, there was an exception to the fair housing laws, and it was called the Miss Murphy Law, that if you had a home that was 4 units or less, you didn't have to abide by the Fair Housing Act. States could opt out of that, right? Ohio opted out. Guess when they tried to reintroduce it? 4 years ago. Okay, we are in an interesting state. So of course we fought that. It did not get passed, but that was only 4 years ago, right? So we have to have attention to what's really going on. And that's why I think sometimes we see, like you said, Yolanda, you have this, stand your ground and a Crown Act, and at the same time, what's going on? So because we have a state that's like that. And then I also wanted to add that you're right, Paula. I believe that we are in a critical state, that the veil has been ripped off of the face of people and women, because as we all know, this country was set up by white men. And so therefore we are saying, why do we have to wear our hair that way? Why do we have to do all these things this way? Because it was never, ever, the system isn't broken. The system never included us. So therefore we have to make certain that we are tearing down that system, and break that system and revise it. And in a lot of ways, specifically for education, there's so much work. So I just wanted to add that.
So Paula, you said something that really resonated with me, and I think about a lot, which is that when change comes, there's a large barrier, which is fear of those who like the way things are. And that can be a huge barrier to progress. And so, especially in someone in your role, how are you finding common ground with people who may not understand where you're coming from or why it's so important that we do change? What are your tactics? And then also, as we become advocates with our elected officials, how could we incorporate those as well to be more effective?
I think, I fall on my training as a guardian ad litem and really trying to understand what motivates and what the other person wants to, I won't say get out of it, but to be able to find that middle ground. And I'll use the example of I talked about the 3rd grade reading guarantee. That is such a broken system. And so I knew that there would be no way that I would be able to get that changed by myself. Currently in the House, we're made up of 98 members. 37 of us are Democrats. The rest are Republicans. So they have a super majority. They don't need us for anything. But in our freshman orientation, what we saw was that so many of us had come, whether Republican or Democratic, come to the State House to fix education, whether it was funding or whatever. And so the chair of that committee, of the education committee, and I have had conversations about what this is doing to our children. So using that as the nucleus, how do we go from there? So we find what's common, and then we work on things incrementally. So there is pending, I think the governor's going to sign it this summer, this capital bill. And then it doesn't, it will give the test, but the test cannot be used for holding a third grader back or teacher evaluations. For me, that's a big win because of what happens to our kids doing that. So you look at those things. What also helps, and helped me, was I asked citizens. We had town halls here in Toledo, in Columbus. I was going to have a third one in Rep. Jones's district, but because of COVID, we had to cancel that. So we were able to show that citizens, parents, teachers, professionals, a number of folks supported this. And that's where advocates are so important, that you show up at the State House, you send emails, you send letters, you make phone calls, because that will show that it's not just me talking about it, but that I'm standing as the advocate for all of the folks in my district or Northwest Ohio, whatever it is. And that's why it's so important for us to do this tonight, but also to stay abreast of what's going on in Columbus. I talk all the time about, I'm calling folks to get information to make sure that the bills I vote on will have a positive, not a negative effect. Because in Columbus, a lot of these bills are done and they think, oh, this will do one thing, but in actual practice, it does something else. So I'm always concerned about unintended consequences and intended consequences as well.
Do you think there'll be a pipeline of additional bills coming as a result of what's going on right now? I mean, can you see it in action, or, is even one of these bills passing like a landmark for us? Give us a frame of reference of.
Well, I do. I'm hopeful. We've had, for the doula legislation, we've had 2 committee hearings, and the chair of the committee likes this bill. So those are two good things. And so now the hope is that when we come back in September, then we would be able to move it before we recess again, and then go for the primary. And then there'll be what's called lame duck. As I said, starting out, I can't answer how quickly these bills will become law, because it has to go through the House, then to the Senate. And with this being the political season or campaign season, I don't want to I have no idea.
Good point.
Why would you be on recess or vacation or anything else during this time of crisis? I have a hard time with that.
You need to ask the Speaker of the House, because that was the question that we had when we were on break, when the COVID had initially started. We don't set the calendar. And some of the first things that, when we first went, we did pass emergency measures for funding and some other things to happen, but that was done initially. And since then, they've been doing business as usual. I'm glad, I will be honest, I am glad we were on break, because after what we had to go through last week, I'm not sure how civil I could be to my colleagues.
Wow. Paula, hello there.
Hey.
I have a question to ask you, and it's because I'm on this end of the laws and processes when it comes to police officers and sheriffs in the school system, and how that is how it's conducted, for one, and the rights of school leaders versus the rights of the police officers or the sheriffs that are in the school. And how we can make that better for all of us. One of the things that I do is I do teach at a dropout credit recovery high school, and those are the young people who people consider are at the last chance of it. And some of the things that I've seen, you know, just in reprimanding, you know, some issues are concerning to me. And they're concerning to not just me, but to other school leaders as well. And my question always is how do we better educate, you know, those officers and those sheriffs, because they're trained for one thing, and then they're paid a lot of money to come be in a school and address these students like they're in jail. And it's very difficult to deal with that on a regular basis.
The two things that I think, and one of the things I've been proposing, but it won't address the situation right now. The school board, who is actually entering into I can only talk about, there's a contract between the school and say Toledo, City of Toledo, for their police officers. In that contract, the contract is for these school community resource officers to be able to be in the school for protection. But it doesn't translate into protection because, as you said, they're trained to keep the peace or what have you. Some of them are able to do some good work, but many of them are not trained to do that. To me, and I've had some conversations with a couple of the school board officials, Toledo school board people, about maybe rethinking that. And do you actually need police and sheriffs, or maybe having more, I'm gonna call them intervention social worker types of folks who are able to de-escalate, to really look at what's going on with a kid, whether it's in, you know, elementary school or in high school. This may not be the best answer, but I think the way we do it, again, with the advocacy, is parents go to the school board. Parents write your school board members. Also, I sometimes think that the teachers and the principals hide behind the police and say, "Oh, I can't do anything because," but then you'll hear the police say, "We work at the discretion and not discretion, but direction of the school system," or whatever, that building. And so it's like, we need to do the research, say, no, that's not how we expect you to do it. But also, to me, the biggest thing that we have failed to do in education is really make parents welcome at their children's school. I came to this town working with the Coalition for Quality Education, and our principle was that parents are the first and best teachers for their children. Why would we not engage them? So I don't know if that answers your question, Ms. Audrey, or not, but it's something that I agree with you, that we have to do a better job of interfacing our, whatever you want to call them, school resource officers, and really be resources for those kids and the teachers in the school system.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Like I said, long answer. I don't know if it's helpful or not, because it's a very frustrating piece. But I'm gonna make a note of it and figure out if there's something I can't do.
And I'm gonna help you with that, Paula. Check.
Yeah, okay. And you know what, Paula, and the other thing is I would love to be in a conversation with you beyond this format about it, because I have a dual role within my school, and that is I'm the truancy coordinator, as well as I teach career education. And there are just some things even within that process of being truancy coordinator that are just pretty interesting, and I would love to be able to just kind of, talk about it and see how to make it better.
Yeah, I'm just asking people, give me a week so I can go to, so I can sleep a little bit in my house.
I have a question, Paula. My name is Betsy Sainholtz. I was wondering, because you talked about moving towards each other and being able to collaborate more with each other of opposing parties or opinions and all of that. It seems to me that since like the early 90s, we've had this very much entertainment factor in politics, as far as like if you scream loud enough or if you say it with determination, it must be true. Yeah, and it's very frustrating to watch people just screaming what they think is true when it's not at all true, and then to start name calling the other side, which I have a big problem with as well. And I don't want to, say one side is better than the other. So, because
it just depends on your personal view.
Right. So, but I was wondering, in your experience, is that moving towards more cooperation and collaboration? No. Okay.
Well,
it just seems like.
Here's how I deal with that craziness. Because my husband retired. I always tell personal stories. My husband retired, and I would come home from work, and that's when I was the mayor. So I'm in the thick of everything. And so I would come home, and he's watching TV, and he says, well, why did you do so-and-so, or why did this happen? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, well, it was on channel whatever that this happened. I said, you only got 3 seconds of a 2-hour whatever. And so I'd explain. He says, oh, okay. Then, between MSN and Fox News, because that's what you're really talking about. And so I began to point out to my husband again, because he's retired, watching TV all the time, commentary. And so he began to say, oh, you're right. And so I really don't watch the news. I get my news out of the newspapers, or I read other things. But I think the bigger question has to be, are we really trying to move the state forward, move the country forward? Are we really going to allow different opinions help us form a better union, a better government? And so what you see on TV, and you're right, it's for the ratings, the entertainment, selling widgets or what have you. But the best government is governing from the middle, where you take a little bit from each side and you say, like I said, like they're using the term defunding police. Nobody's talking about that, but that's the word you hear. And they're being used, and that's being used on purpose. When we talk about Black Lives Matter, and you get the response, all lives matter. Yeah, of course they do. But who is disproportionately being at the result of it? Oh, well, the riots are horrible. That, it's okay, with people looting and shooting and stuff like that. That really diminishes the cause, for the outcry. But when you think about the whole circumstances of why people are so upset, then you could say, well, would I not maybe be so angry that by proximity, I'm not gonna, like the dumbest thing was folks in Toledo, and whoever did it, deciding that they're gonna leave downtown and drive out to Target because of what happened in Minneapolis with the Target store that was in the neighborhood. I mean, how stupid.
Yeah.
But that goes back to, are we really, why are we in this? Why are we in this? I tell everyone, I could stay at home in the middle of my bed and be happy. I would not have to drive to Columbus and play and do this dance with folks. who, one, don't believe, what we tell them, believe that it's okay to violate the Constitution when it suits their purposes, but not when it would provide a recognition to a group that you don't agree with.
Mhm.
So I'm hopeful because the young people are telling us what we need to do and how to do it.
Yeah.
Long answer to
A
that.
quick question. It's been brought up a little bit, and I'm joining late, so please forgive me if this has been addressed in depth, but regarding the budget cuts that are being proposed for the police department, I've heard about and what I'm looking for is your opinion. I've heard about the budget cuts that are trying to get moved through quickly. And I also understand from the organizations, I've worked with Toledo Rotary, the Peace Committee there, and I also understand that the hotspot organizations, the feedback that I've heard is not, we want less police. It's we need the police, we need the law enforcement, but we need it to be effective. We need it to be community policing where the comments were that these officers that are out of the cars, that it's not intimidation and that they know their mom's name, they know what subject they struggle with in school, that's the focus. I also heard you mention how much the salaries are. So that was a distinction that I also heard from multiple different kind of viewpoints, was that it's about cutting the salaries of individuals, but keeping that budget and even potentially keeping that increase of officers. That is the plan. I think, and of course, this is all stuff I'm hearing about, so I could be citing this incorrectly, but the information that we're somewhere around 500 and we're looking to go up to 660. But my point is what is your opinion about those budget cuts that are, it seems like that is more a response to what's happening collectively and people are trying to help, but I'm curious if that would be helpful.
Well, I'm not sure of the specific things that you're talking about. I just know in the very broad, the broad ideas about what defunding police actually could be. Here's my take on community policing versus what we have today. And community policing is what you talked about, where officers are assigned to a specific area. They get out of their cars and walk the beat, so to speak. And and I'll give you an example. Chief Crawl banned these military vests that the police were wearing because he felt that they were intimidating, because they had the taser and all this other crap in front. So when a police officer would show up at someone's house, it was because they could be they looked all powerful and militaristic. And the union grieved it because they felt that they needed to have these vests with all this crap in them. There is a need to tone down that military aspect of it. There was a march 2 Sundays ago, and the police were there to lead it because they were walking in the street. Before the march started, when people were praying, because it was a prayer march, the officers were in their cars with the air conditioning on and their windows rolled up. That would have been a great time for those officers to stand outside of their cars. And they didn't have to mingle with the group, but by being outside of their cars, they didn't create that barrier. Those are very small things that that have nothing to do with funds or changing the assignments of these officers. But what it does, it changes the mindset. One of the worst things that happened to our police and fire was when the Supreme Court ruled that they could live outside of the cities that they live in. So when you talk to, I have a lot, I was the mayor. I had to bam on Chief Craw, and we had very, very good discussions about how well we can change that mindset. I used to tell him all the time, he can have all the coffee with the cops, all the kickball games, all these other wonderful things. But when you have a cop on video driving down the street in his car, rolling with the window down, yelling at a citizen on her porch and antagonizing her and ending up arresting her because she cursed him out. And it is on video, and then it's Facebook, that goes all the way to where we are today, where police are not respected, where police are looked as the enemy, and it's not just in communities of color, as it is in so many different ways. So be careful about listening to those things, because I think, number one, each police department has to be responsive and reflective of its community. Our police department is not, and I'm not going to even get into the demographics, as I'm going to get into the geography of it. I'm lucky and fortunate that my neighbor is a police officer. So he lives right here in the city in Old West End. But there's so many officers that don't, that they live in Michigan, they live in Genoa, they live, some live south of Bowling Green. They live all over, but not in the city. And that's a problem, because what's the familiarity that they have with the people that they are policing? And one last thing is, we have to look at the history of police. And police were created not to protect and serve all of us, but to protect and serve the wealthy, the landowners. And then when slavery was instituted, was to protect the slave owners, to keep slaves from running away. So we have to be real clear about where we are in that history. And really, like I said, look at how we can have a 22nd policing system. I've got some ideas, and I think the governor picked them up when we had our conversation earlier about having assessments done to make sure, not only about race and bias, but also aggression. And then going from that, training, after the training, further testing or assessment, while they're every year, as they have to qualify for their shooting, they also need to qualify to make sure that their perceptions of citizens haven't changed, because they really believe it's us against them. And how can you protect me if you think that I'm out to get you, or I have to get you because I don't trust you?
Today, the governor shared, I don't know if anybody chimed in at 2:00. I thought they did a great job of at least putting a step in the right direction with regard to discussing the realities that, certain African Americans have had to deal with. And because Good Morning America, I don't know if anyone saw the video that was going around about the African American son who was talking about the things he learned from his parents about being around police. And they actually played that today during the governor's talk, which I thought was very progressive for them to talk about that. And just because that's reality. I don't know if any of you guys have ever had your parents talk to you about how you act. I know my mom did. She taught me of how I am supposed to act in a car when a police comes and stops you. I mean, it was very specific about what we were allowed to do and what we weren't allowed to do. And so I know that's something that we all should take a look at when we're looking at the differences between what people, minorities, specifically African Americans, have had to deal with that in policing.
All right, it's 7:14, 7:15. I know we really have a very productive dialogue. if anyone, I want to share, if anyone else have like maybe one or two more questions, and perhaps we want to wrap it up.
I don't have any more questions, but again, I just wanted to really say thank you, Paula, for your time and your efforts and hosting us in a conversation that we probably could go on and on and on about many things. And I hope this will continue to raise some awareness and give us all the opportunity to talk to some things that are near and dear to us, and also create some action for, you know, those women who want to take a next step of, you know, not just talking about it, but create an action that supports what, you know, what your concerns are, or to support your friends or your family in their concerns. That's how we get change. I just wanted to say that because I have to jump off and go to another meeting, but, you know, thank you again, and thank you, Team Women of Toledo.
Before you jump off, let me say this real quickly, is that if you don't mind, and I don't know, I guess permission, but if I can just shoot you or have my aide shoot information, and if it's something that you're interested in, you can send back stuff, because I really want to create a strong communication pipeline between Columbus and Toledo, because they don't understand us up here. And the only way they're going to understand us is if you all will help me be that voice. That's all I want to say. So, and just tell me how I can make that happen. I'm there.
Good. Before we wrap it up, and then have our what's next, Paula, do you have anything else, final word that you like to share with the group?
Absolutely. And real quickly, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being on this call, and thank you for, you know, just being part of a group of women who want to be engaged. And I'm sitting in this seat because I was given the opportunity, and I want to be able to share that with any and all, because we can all do something. We can all be part of the solution. And you don't have to necessarily be sitting in the seat in Columbus, but you can sure be sending information and telling us stuff that we need to know, and just being engaged. So I want to thank you for that. And Nina, I want to make sure that we are able to connect more often.
Definitely. We want to try to engage with our elected officials. So I start with you, and then perhaps we can go in a circle on monthly basis and go how far we got, because we do want to engage with almost everyone. So before we go, anyone else have anything else before I share our final thing? No? Okay. I'll make sure to share all the information on the chat room through your post session, because you usually get an email saying thank you for attending today. I really appreciate all of you for attending today. Tonight's session is a great women's circle every third Wednesday, very small, so we could have a dialogue with our speaker. Next coming up is our mentorship circle. Is every fourth Thursday of the month. We are still doing Zoom, and the best part about our next week mentorship circle, we have a topic that's surrounding advocacy. So similar to like tonight, next week, all leaders going to be sharing more about how to do better at advocating on issue that is important to you, your cause and movement and current issue. Pretty much how to rally support surrounding the issue that you are passionate about. So we're gonna have Gretchen DeBacker as our moderator. She is our legislative director for City of Toledo, Chief of Staff, Rhonda Swirl, External and Government Affairs, and Ashley Furrell, who is our U.S. District Attorney, that's gonna be joining us, and Kelly Daniel. Pretty sure Christina dropped you the RSVP. Even though it's a mentorship, you don't really need to be a mentees. We can learn from and about each other, and I hope you can join us next week. If you want to get involved with our responsive advocacy, also jump in We do have YWCA is going to continue having a conversation. I know they have a book report, a book discussion next week. Again, Christina did drop on the chat room resources from YWCA. So I pretty much, that's it. Paula, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate you for being here tonight, and I look forward to continue engaging and have conversations with you. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you.
And then have a
Thank
good night, everyone. Thank you, and be safe. Bye.
Bye.
Let me see.